So you've probably heard that webinars are a powerful way to grow your business. But let's be real. They can also feel overwhelming, right? Like setting them up, scripting them, selling and pitching on them. It's a lot. I get it. But what if I told you there is a simple webinar template that can help you hit 6 figures in a weekend without overcomplicating things? In today's episode, I'm breaking down the exact 100K webinar framework that I've been using and loving in 2025. It's straightforward, it works, and it's designed to make running webinars easier and more effective than ever, even if you're just getting started. But before we dive in, big announcement. Next week, I'm hosting a brand new masterclass to help you grow your business this year. I'm excited about it. It's brand new material. It's called How to Turn Your Exhausting Business into an Effortless Business. Love your business again, scale past 6 and 7 figures, all while working less than 20 hours a week. And the best part, it's absolutely free to attend. So if that sounds like a fit for you, just click the link in the description below or go to effortlessmasterclass.com to snag your free spot. I'll see you there. All right, so what I want to get into real quick today is explain the 5 absolutely essential components to an effective webinar. I want to bust 2 big webinar myths, and then I'm going to give you my 5-part, bonus 6-part webinar template, my 2025 template, the one that I've been testing out the last year or so, and the one I'm using moving forward. It's just working so well for me, and I love it, and it's working well for my clients as well. Real quick though, I don't know where you are on the experience level with webinars. If you've given a ton of webinars in the past, that's great. Then you have some experience with going live, of hosting an event and a presentation, because that's really what it is a virtual presentation. It's basically like going live on YouTube or Instagram. It's nothing more than that. It's just intentional, right? It's intentional, and you use it like an event. You invite people to it, and people underuse webinars for sure. So if you've never done one, don't be overwhelmed. I'll help you do them right. But if you've done them for a long time, this might be actually more helpful for you, because there was kind of an old way of doing webinars that really dated back to the early 2000s when people were selling on the internet for the first time. And it's really not even internet based. It's really based off of old sort of sales presentations. If you imagine some of those seminars you would go to, it might be a free seminar and someone would be speaking, but then they would be pitching some kind of high ticket offer at the end of their seminar. And that's how the seminar was free or low cost, is they had to sell you something at the end. And some of these things became pitch fests, right? They became, kind of grimy and sleazy feeling, because you're like, how could I come to this event with all these amazing speakers for like $100 or free? How are these people getting paid? How is this hotel ballroom getting paid for? Oh, they're all selling things. It'd be like the run to the back of the room with your credit card, buy our thing. Like, that's an old school, like 70s, 80s, 90s thing that then people who came online got smart and said, let's apply that model of a sales presentation that's, masked with like I'm going to teach you something. And we could turn that into a virtual seminar, an online seminar, a website seminar. Hey, it's called a webinar. That's where the name comes from, right? And that's what's giving webinars bad names and a bad taste in people's mouths, is because it's got this lingering 40, 50, 60-year-old aftertaste of like, I just got soaked in sleazy sales gunk. And I don't like watching those, and I don't like teaching those. And so why would I want to do that? So that might be your experience with webinars, either as a user or as someone who was told this is the way you got to do a webinar. And what's interesting is that the culture is shifting, and the way people want to buy and be sold to is shifting. And we're so used to hearing content on the internet and hearing virtual presentations that webinars aren't weird anymore, but the way we've been doing them is still kind of weird. And so the last couple of years, I've been trying to simplify, and I've been like studying everybody I possibly can that's really, really world-class at this, and try to learn the best stuff from all of them and test it out with my own way of thinking, which is how hopefully you're applying what I teach you, is take the best of what I give you and apply it to what else you like, what else is working for you, and then create your own version of it. That is the genesis of how I've come to this webinar template that I'm going to share with you. And I'm going to get really practical. So open up your notes app, or if you have pen and paper, if you're not listening to this in your car ride while you're driving, like, please don't do this if you're driving. But if you're not driving, write it down. This is going to be like, in a way, a mini masterclass on webinars for you. All right, so let's just dive into what you got to understand. One thing: what you need to have in a webinar, like what it needs to accomplish, like the psychology of what's happening in a webinar. I'm going to give you those 5 things. I'm going to bust 2 myths that I think are holding a lot of us back. And then I'm going to give you the template. And then you can use this like next weekend if you want to. If you've got a webinar coming up, if you've never done a webinar, if you just want to sell anything, webinars are one of the best mechanisms to sell because it's a presentation where they're spending some time with you. You can add a ton of value in real time and then make a logical offer for them. And so it's super effective as a sales vehicle for you to sell whatever it is, courses, coaching, an event, a book, it doesn't matter. Okay? So here are the 5 things that an effective webinar or presentation needs to accomplish, right? Number 1, a webinar needs to connect with their hearts. I missed this for so long. I probably rank very low on emotions, and I'm a content guy. And so for years, I would stuff my webinars with content. One of my webinars that is like infamous to me was a 2-hour webinar where I shared 10 mistakes audio engineers were making in their home recording studios. Like, why would I ever share 10? And each one I was doing like live tutorials with, like it literally took 2 hours. And some poor people sat through that whole thing. What's amazing is I still made money. I think that weekend I still made 60 grand selling a bundle I put together. And that was what the webinar was for. But it was so long. And I had to like cut that thing down when I made it an evergreen webinar. And the point of it is that it was just all content. It was all content. It was just like way too much head content. What I didn't realize, because I wasn't a keynote speaker then, but the last 3 years I've been studying from some of the greats on giving world-class keynotes or speeches or presentations. I've given a TED Talk. I've been standing on stages in front of 500 people, 1,000 people. I've been speaking in front of masterminds. I've been given 10 minutes to speak in front of 100,000 people online in a live summit. Like I've had all these different opportunities to have to speak, and I've learned, bro, before you can give them your good stuff, they need to be bought in at a heart level. So you got to connect with their hearts. This has to be meaningful to them beyond just let me give you some awesome content, head related. So it's got to connect with their hearts. We'll get into what that looks like specifically. It has to establish the problem that you want to help them solve. A problem. Not lots of problems. There might be lots of pain points related to that problem. That's fine. But what is the one problem that you want your presentation to solve, your webinar to solve? And then also it has to establish your premise. So problem and premise. Your premise is kind of like your solution. It's good. And the beautiful thing, and I learned this from my friend Colin Boyd, who's world-class at this, by the way. Sell from Stage Academy is his program. He's got a lot of great stuff. Colin's, one of the shifts he helped me understand was you need to seed your premise into your presentation all along the way. And your premise should basically be what your offer is. So if, for example, I were a fitness instructor helping people get in shape, lose weight, if my premise was that nutrition is more important than what you do in the gym, well, no, let me say this way. If what I wanted to sell was my meal plan, my 30-day meal plan program, because I really believe that what you eat makes a difference, like abs are made in the kitchen, they say, then my premise in my webinar would be that your body is made in the kitchen. It's made in what you eat, not in what you do in the gym. I would seed that premise in the presentation so they're already thinking, wow, yeah, it's not just working out. It's really how I'm fueling my body. That's the difference maker in how I'm going to lose weight and look good. So by the time I get to offering them a meal plan program or something like that, that's based around that premise, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Do you see how that powerful that is? And Colin helped me understand that distinction, which is seed your premise. So it's got to address one problem. I learned this from Christy Wright. What is the one problem your presentation or webinar is going to solve? And you have to have your premise or your solution or your main point. And so however you want to call that, that's going to line up with your offer. Making those things connect is huge. So you can connect with their hearts. Your webinar needs to establish the problem and the premise. It needs to change their perspective, number 3, on what's possible. It needs to change their perspective on what's possible. So your webinar isn't just teaching them a bunch of stuff. You really want them to, after the end of the webinar, have had a shift of perspective on what's possible for them. It really is about belief. Because think about it. If they don't believe that they can change, they're not going to buy your thing that's going to help them change. No matter how good it is, no matter how sweet of a deal it is, if they don't believe that it's possible for them to change, they're not going to buy it. So part of your job is to show them what's possible and get them to a place of new belief so that when you make them an offer, they're like, yeah, that's going to be money well spent because I actually believe I can get there. As a coach, listen, as a coach, I've learned it doesn't matter how good my frameworks are, my advice is, my mentorship is. If my client doesn't believe they can change, and they're not going to do anything with it. Even if they hired me, they're not going to do anything with it. But they're certainly not going to hire me if they don't believe that they can change. I can only meet them when they're at a place of, I really believe change is possible. So a lot of what I'm doing here on YouTube and in my podcast is helping impart belief to you that you get to a point where you believe you can change. That's the only reason why you would ever hire me as a coach or join my programs or buy a course or buy a book is if you actually believe, you know what, I think I can change. And I want Graham to be the agent of that change. Does that make sense? So it's got to change their perspective on what's possible. They got to get them to believe. Number 4, it's got to give them real solutions. And this is what's going to separate you from all the sleazeballs out there that it's just a giant pitch without any real solutions. You do need to offer real solutions. Now, that doesn't mean, as you'll see in a minute, gobs of content. It doesn't mean you need a 2-hour webinar like Graham did in 2017, like the record 2-hour webinar. That's stupid. With like 10 strategies, it's way too much. That's not what I mean. Real solutions can come in less of a packaging, but you really have to give them something that they could walk away with and go, I can use that. That actually can help me today. In fact, why would you not want to do that? Right? Like you really, truly want to help show them that you actually have solutions. If you just dance around the solutions and tease what you can help them with, but never actually help them, why would they buy your thing? Show them that you can help them by what a concept, helping them, right? Help them. And I've always believed in this, but I used to think you have to give them gobs and gobs and gobs of content, but you don't. But you do need to give them real solutions, right? That's the 4th thing it needs. And number 5, an effective webinar or presentation needs to show them how other people, AKA your students or clients, have overcome their same problem with your methods, right? This is a powerful distinction where you are doing 2 things at once. When you show examples of past clients or current students or people you work with, whether it's in a case study or just like a quote or just a before and after photo or before and after experience, you're doing 2 things. 1, you can seed the offer that you're going to sell in the presentation by mentioning it. One of my students joined Automatic Income Academy, my course, and they had never sold anything online before, and then they did their first launch and they made $10,000. And here's what he discovered in this process: X, Y, and Z. You quickly mentioned, so you're seeding that you have something to sell and that you sell stuff. And then people buy your stuff, and then they get results. And the reason you do this is it makes them less resistant to an offer when you make an offer at the end, because you are going to make an offer. That's the point of the webinar, because you've been telling them that you make offers and people buy your offers, which is now credibility. People buy your offers, but really you're showing them transformation, which when they see other people have gotten transformation from you, well, man, they're going to see themselves in your client's transformation story. And you can do this throughout the journey. When you teach a concept, you'd be like, one of my clients, Susie, in my program or my coaching community, she applied this concept and here are her results. See how I spend like 3 seconds mentioning my offer, but really the rest of it is on her experience and her transformation. And then now you, as the webinar attendee, can see yourself in my previous students' transformation. Does that make sense? So those are the 5 things that your webinar needs to accomplish. It needs to connect with their hearts, establish your problem and premise, change their perspective on what's possible, aka impart belief, give them real solutions, and number 5, show them how other people have overcome that same problem using your methods. Now, real quick, 2 big myths about webinars, and then I'm going to give you the template, and we'll get you out of here. The 2 big myths are that they, number 1, need to be long. I've been hinting at this. No, they don't. In fact, long is no longer useful. People's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, no thanks to TikTok. And so we need to just get to the point faster. And so whereas at the beginning, I would spend a lot more time establishing my credibility and having a giant love me wall and previous things you might have tried, it was so drawn out. The ideal webinar in 2025 and beyond is 45 minutes or less. I'm just going to say it. 45 minutes or less. The actual presentation itself. If you're going to have some live Q&A, then you can tack that on at the end. But you should be able to deliver a world-class effective presentation in 30 to 45 minutes. And not only should you be able to, I think it's going to be more effective because people are busy. They're not going to, if they come to your webinar, they blocked out the hour. That's all they blocked out. So don't go over the hour. But even then, you don't have such a long drawn out beginning that they're just like, when is he going to get to the, I personally hate webinars that take forever to get to the good stuff. Just get to the good stuff. And so you don't want a long webinar. Long isn't better. Faster is better. If I can get you a solution faster, wouldn't you pay me more for faster results? Right? So they don't need to be long. That's an old myth. Number 2, big myth is that they need a full-on pitch. And this is a big shift for me. And I've taught this for years, that you do the webinar, which is the teaching portion, and then you transition to the pitch. And I literally would turn off my camera and be having a sales script so I could click through the sales slide deck and go through the pitch. And it's functionally like the back half of my sales page, just live, and I'll go through everything. And it would take me 20 minutes to get through the pitch, and I'd be exhausted. And that has worked historically. But here's the thing. This is what I've learned, and this is what I've been testing, and this works. If you follow the template I'm about to give you, your opening story, which I'll explain in a minute, and your content should do 80% of the selling. Pat Quinn talks about this red line in your webinar or your presentation, and there's everything before the pitch is in front of the red line, and then the pitch or the call to action is the red line and beyond. He says 80% of your sales are going to come before the red line. But before you've even mentioned your offer and offered it to them, 80% of the audience has already made up their mind to work with you. The ones that are going to buy from you have already made up their mind, which is fascinating because really you're selling throughout without you having to do a traditional pitch. So you don't need a full-on pitch, and I'm going to explain this very clearly in just a second. But those are the 2 big myths. They don't need to be long, and you don't need a full-on pitch. And I think everyone on the internet now should just rejoice because of those 2 things I just said. Shorter is better. Less pitching is better. But how you set up your presentation matters. And with all that out of the way, let me give you the template. Sound good? All right, if you haven't been taking notes, please take notes. This is going to transform your webinars or even your live keynotes if you have anything to sell. Even if the thing you're selling is book a call with my team or fill out an application or here's a quiz, or /lead magnet. Okay, 5 elements in my webinar template. And I began testing this the last couple of years. I've been studying from some of the greats, Christy Wright, Rory Vaden, Pete Vargas, Pat Quinn, Colin Boyd, you name it. And then I pay attention to every webinar I've been on. Taylor Conroy's, Chandler Bolt's, Sean Cannell. I just watch people do webinars, and I pay attention to what I think is effective, what was effective for me, and then what feels good to me. So this is taking everyone I've been learning from, plus everything I've learned and have done over the last 15 years, rejudging it into Graham's 2025 and beyond template. And I've used this template to do over 100K in a weekend for an offer. And this was a relatively low cost offer. So this works. It's effective. It's fun. And you can use it today. Ready? Component number 1 in the template is connection plus benefit bullets. Okay. And this is really unique to the webinar. Think about people are joining your Zoom or they're joining your YouTube Live or wherever you're doing your webinar, and they're all joining at different times. I always leave the first 3 minutes. I go live on the top of the hour on time. I don't go early. I go on time, and I give people 3 minutes to join. Okay? In those 3 minutes, I'm just jibber jabbering and connecting. Where are you tuning in from? What's your beverage of choice right now? That's really to give people time to figure out the login. That's kind of dead time. But at the 3 minute mark, I begin the template and I reconnect with them. So I've been connecting all along, but the people that just joined at 3 minutes, I connect with them. I'm excited for them. Get ready. This is going to be amazing. And I go immediately into what I call benefit bullets. And these are probably the exact same bullets I used, hint, hint, on the sign up page for the webinar to get them to join the webinar. The things you're going to learn, the benefits you're going to have from this presentation. And basically, what are they going to get from being here? They've already committed. You already got them to opt in and come to your webinar. That's amazing. But you got to honor their time. They showed up. You're trying to remind them why they signed up, because it might have been a week or two, or it might have been 5 minutes ago. It doesn't matter. But you want to, this is the promise. Like, here's what I'm promising you. You're going to walk away knowing these things, or have this shift, or have this outcome, right? I'm going to reveal this strategy. Remind them. You're constantly selling them even why they should watch, okay? So connection, real quick, and then what are the benefit bullets? We're going to cover this, this, and this. This can be real quick. This is like less than 60 seconds, okay? Then immediately go into number 2 component, your opening story. I used to set up me and my credibility. I used to set up typical problems that my people have had and solutions. It was all very head knowledge, and I have realized the most effective way to draw people in and to remove the judgment side of their brain, which is this going to be worth my time? Is this guy know what he's talking about? Am I going to get anything out of this? Is this just going to be a giant pitch fest? Whatever's going on in their brain, the fastest way to remove that barrier and draw them in to hang on everything I'm going to say is to tell a story. Because human beings are wired for story. And I've fought this for long because I'm not a storyteller. I don't usually love story. I usually want to get to the meat myself, but I've realized that I've been missing out on the most powerful component to any presentation or webinar, and that is the opening story. Think of this as a 5-minute moment where you're doing a few things. The overarching thing you're doing with a story, and I learned this from Pat Quinn and Pete Vargas, is to connect with their heart. Connect emotionally with them. Not their head, their heart. You have to get them to buy in as a human being that has a heart need, and we all have a heart need, right? If you're teaching fitness or weight loss in your webinar, the heart need might be the shame and embarrassment that they've experienced being at the beach or at the pool, or it might be the heart need of, like, I had a heart attack, literally, or I want to make sure I'm there for my grandkids. I want my health to be like what. You have to speak to something meaningful in their heart. So that's the overarching purpose of the story, is connect with their heart. Here's what you weave into your story. You need to establish the problem they have. Your story is going to eventually get to there. And how are you going to do this? Well, your story is going to talk about you and how you had that same problem they have. Wow. This does 2 things. One, it shows them that you're a problem solver, and they're going to have to admit, yeah, I've got that problem. I've got that problem. If you struggle to lose weight, or I've been afraid of doing webinars, or I don't know how to scale past 6 figures and hit the 7-figure mark, that's a problem, right? Or I'm exhausted in my business, that's a problem. It needs to establish the problem so that they know, hey, yeah, he's speaking my language, empathy. But 2, if you share that you had that problem, it shows that you're just like them, that you're an ordinary person that has had that same problem they currently have. That story needs to show how you overcame that problem, or at least part of that problem. That shows them, that you're extraordinary. You're ordinary like them. You've had the same fears, the same problems, but you're extraordinary in that you've solved at least one problem that they haven't solved, and it could be this core problem. And it also establishes your credibility. You weave that in very subtly and classily in a classy way during your story. But they're not going to listen to you if you haven't solved the problem that they have. So they want to know that you're credible. We want to be taught by people that are credible. It's just you don't have to do it in a love me wall type style. So you show that you've established the problem, that you've had that problem, how you overcame it yourself, and then you're going to seed your premise, which is your I believe statement, or I've discovered statement. I believe you can record a professional sounding song at home for less than $300 with only 2 plugins. I believe that the fastest way to scale to 6 figures is to work 20 hours a week or less. I don't know, like whatever your belief statement is, this is your core point, your core solution, your core I believe statement which has got to connect with your offer later. So again, going back to the fitness example I gave, if you're going to sell them a meal plan program, then your premise is that, and I, through this journey of losing weight and overcoming this problem, I've discovered that the body of your dreams is made in the kitchen, not in the gym. Or I've discovered that it's what you eat that makes you look the way you want to look, not what you do at the gym. I don't know. But it would be some kind of I believe statement. Because then they're going, that's interesting. That's kind of like your big point. And they're thinking about it. And what's cool about it, saying a I believe or I discover statement, is that like you've gone on the journey, you've done the hard work, and you've come to put a stake in the ground. And I've come here today to tell you, this is what I believe. This is the mission I'm on, is to help other people believe the same thing. Right? Does this make sense? So that opening story does a lot of the heavy lifting. And you can do this in 5 minutes or less. And I love what Pat Quinn says, start in a moment. Where were you? I was sitting in front of my laptop. What just happened? I got this email from a publisher. And what did you think to yourself or say to yourself? And I said to myself, really? Another rejection email? Like, whoa, now I'm like in the moment, right? And that's part of my story. I don't have a webinar for that, but that's part of my story, right? So it gets them in a moment. Something just happened. What were you thinking? And now you're in the story. That's how you start the story. And you just share like the challenge you went through and the journey to come out of that, the problem you were facing, the desire you had, the way you solved that problem, had that victory. And this is how I discovered. And this is why today I believe wholeheartedly X, Y, and Z. I want to help you do that today. Does it make sense? 5 minutes can get it done. People will be drawn in. And now you're 8 minutes into your webinar. The first 3 minutes were welcoming people. No, let's say you're 9 minutes in. I'll give you 10. 3 minutes to welcome people, 1 to 2 minutes to officially start and list the benefit bullets that they're going to get, what they're going to get out of the webinar, and then a 5 to 6 minute story that seeds the problem, establishes your credibility, gives your core premise and I believe statement, and now their guard is down. They are drawn in because they're listening to another human being, and you're less than 10 minutes into this thing, and now you can get into component 3 of the webinar template, which is your content. And this is going to be about 20 to 30 minutes, right, depending on how long the back half is going to be. And this is where you want to usually have 3 points. 2 to 3 points is all you need. Some people say 3 to 5, but I feel like it's just too many for people to remember. I think 3 is the magic number, so teach 3 things. And here's how a simple template for you. One of those things needs to show them the possibility. That one should really impart belief. So if you have something that seems impossible, like building $1 million a year business or losing weight or looking like, you got to have a point that you can teach them that shows them that they can actually do this. Shows them the possibility. I'll give you an example. One of my webinars that I used years ago to get people into my 6-figure coaching community, which was a community I was running for 4 or 5 years, helping people get up to 6 figures in their business, was I showed them the simple math of making 6 figures. And I showed them 3 different examples of friends or clients of mine that all were making 6 figures or more in their business, and in 3 different ways. One with only 12 customers, one with only a $100 product, or one was only a $6 product, and one with like a $300 product. And I showed them like, you can do it with a big audience, a small audience, high price, low price. And I showed them the real math and real examples. And that was like one of the points of my webinar. But that was the one that unlocked for them that, wait a second, I've been thinking that you have to build 6 figures this one way, but now I realize there's multiple ways, and like the possibility rises up in them. So I love a point that shows them what's possible. One point that shifts their mindset. This could be similar, but I like to sort of say like, most people think this, but the truth is this, and give them a point there. So now you're going against common wisdom or commonly held beliefs, and you're challenging them, and you're showing them a provocative way of thinking, and unpack that a bit. So that's really, really powerful. And then at least one of your 3 has to be a really juicy, tactical, hands-on strategy that is worth the price of admission, which is 0, admittedly, but their time, right? So they're like, dude, I'm so glad I came to that presentation, because like within 30 minutes, I learned this one thing. So for example, in that same 6-figure community webinar, I was sharing 3 secrets of earning 6 figures, and one of those was what I call the 4% rule. the 64-4 rule, and I talked about the 4% customers and how you can literally like double your income without adding any new customers. Like you have really high net customers there. You're just not offering them a top tier product. And I showed them how to think about that, how that works, and gave them like a process for coming up with their 4% offer. And like I just heard over and over again people walking away like, dude, the 64-4 rule like was a reframe and blew my mind. And I need to go build like they just wanted to go build that thing. So at least one of them needs to be super juicy and tactical. And just a little bonus is if you can give them exercises or like swipe copy or templates for them to implement, even just one, super, super juicy. I did an entire webinar. This 100K webinar I did, one of the things I gave them was a template for discovering speaking to their avatar. Hey, here's like your elevator pitch. Say this, and people will know exactly what you do and how you do it, who you help, and it'll make you look really, really impressive. And it was like a sentence structure formula. Insert your words here. And it's so simple, but it gave them something they could copy and paste and like, oh, great, done for me, right? Super, super juicy. So the content is the meat. That's what they're coming for. And that's where you need to deliver on the promise of the webinar. You need to deliver on the promise of the title, and you need to deliver on the benefit bullets that you were explaining at the beginning and on the registration page. But don't overdo the how-to content. Again, something I learned from Colin Boyd is don't overdo the how-to content. Make sure you have belief content and decision content. You're helping them realize that they need to make a different decision in their life to get the results that you've gotten, just like you had to make a decision. That's why you start with this story about the decisions you made and the journey you went on. That's really going to be more powerful for them and going to make them want to take more action with your offer. Okay, the fourth component is the call to action, AKA the pitch. But I like to call it a call to action because like every good piece of content, you need one CTA, not two, one. You're calling them to take action on what they've learned. And that's really, really important. You've told them a story. You've blown their minds with some content. We're just going to let them go home after that and say, well, that was great. No, you're going to give them a next step. And that next best step is to work with you, buy your thing, join your community, hire you as a coach, book a call, whatever it is. 2 to 5 minutes max. This should not be a giant pitch. All you do is tell them this. If this training has resonated with you so far, then you're going to love my XYZ program. And here's what it is. It's for these people. It helps them get this result. It's got these components. These are some people that have loved it. And seriously, if what I've taught you today has resonated with you, this is your best next step to go deeper, implement, and get the absolute best results. You should feel really comfortable saying that because you've blown their minds, you've served them powerfully for, at this point, 30 to 40 minutes. And then you're doing what a good coach should do, which is lead them and give them a next step. And if they're not ready to take that next step, that's totally fine. If they didn't resonate with what you taught, then they're not going to like your next step anyway, because your whole webinar should be engineered to resonate perfectly with your offer. The whole point of the webinar is to build trust, add value, and filter the right people to go, oh man, this is for me. I can sense Graham's talking to me. This is for me. So when you present the call to action as your offer, they're like, dude, it's a no-brainer that I want to join that. And then the question is whether they have the money or they're ready to purchase today. And just link to the offer, link to the sales page. Here's where I used to end, right there. Okay, that's it. I'll leave the buy now button on the screen. And I just totally missed it. The fifth and final component you need in your webinar template is a closing story. And you could have guessed it. My weakness was the opening story. My weakness was the closing story. I didn't tell any stories in my webinars for like 10 years. But I've seen the power of the closing story for two reasons. One, you want to reinforce your main point. Okay? You want to move away from the call to action because you made the offer. Maybe some people feel uncomfortable. There's always going to be that one person on the call that's like, oh my gosh, you pitched in this thing? It's like, dude, I have a business to run and I just served you powerfully for free for 45 minutes. Yeah, I pitched. I offered you something awesome. You don't have to take it. I'm not mad at the waiter when he offers me a dessert. I just decide yes or no. You know, I'm like, thank you for offering it. I don't need a dessert right now. So there's always gonna be someone that's upset, but You want to move on from the pitch to show them that the offer isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is that they make a change in their life, because they came to this webinar because they have the problem that your webinar is promising to solve. And you care about them deeply, and so you want them to make a change. So you're going to move off of the call to action or the offer and tell them a story that reinforces your main belief, the main point, so that even if they don't take you up on the offer, you're getting back to the point you want them to leave the training with. So it needs to reinforce and connect with their hearts, to reinforce the main point and get back to their hearts. I learned this again from Pat Quinn from Advance to Reach and 10X Stages, because the way he puts it is that you've got two types of decision makers on any presentation or in any given room. You've got tactical decision makers and emotional decision makers. The tactical ones are going to buy by the time you mention the call to action, like, okay, that makes sense. It seems like a good deal. Let's go. The emotional decision makers need to be brought back to how it feels here to them. And so if you just end with a call to action, you've lost half of your potential audience. The people that are on the fence, they really, really want to do business with you. So when you get back to that closing story, again, 3 to 5 minutes, you can speak to their heart again. This is so, so powerful. And it allows you to end on a story which gets them out of judgment mode and back to like, hey, we're just two people with real problems and real desires and real hopes and dreams, solving things. And you can connect with them. And that story can be about your life. It can be about a client's life, but it should be a real powerful moment that brings it back home. And then you thank them for coming. Hope they join your program. See them next time. Bonus for the template, number 6, if it's live, because not all your webinars are live. You can have an auto webinar, an evergreen webinar. I think you probably should. If you get one that works well live, make it an ongoing webinar. But bonus is if you do it live, is do some live Q&A. So if you've done a 45-minute presentation, again, 3 minutes to welcome them, and then let's call it 42 to 45 minutes in the actual webinar itself, you got 15 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the hour that you can go live and answer some questions. And just be open-ended, like serve them, coach them powerfully. This is another part of the sales process where you're getting to show them your care for them, your expertise, your passion for what you just taught, and it's just going to blow them away. And then just be mindful of the clock, watch the clock, and then cut it off at the top of the hour. That's my 2025 webinar template. It works powerfully. I've used this to sell courses. I've used this to sell high-end coaching. And this is the best of what I've learned and done over the last 15 years. And I give it to you to use as you like. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment below and let me know which of those 5 components was the one that you're missing right now in your webinar presentations, or what was the one takeaway you had of like, oh my gosh, I need to implement this in my webinars. Comment below or message me on Instagram at @TheGrahamCochran if you're listening to the podcast version of this. And before we go, speaking of webinars, I have an entire masterclass for you. I don't want you to miss. Next week, I'm hosting a brand new masterclass to help you grow your business. It's right now when I'm saying this, it's the beginning of the year. I want you to come. I want you to grow this year. And the promise is simple. I'm going to help you turn your exhausting business into an effortless business so you can love your business again, scale past 6 and 7 figures, all while working less than 20 hours a week. A bold promise. I've been doing this for 15 years and I help people do this all the time. I'm going to teach you some of my best stuff, brand new frameworks, brand new content that I haven't taught anywhere else publicly. I'm super excited to share it with you. All the details are below. Just click the link in the description below or go to effortlessmasterclass.com. Snag your free spot. Hope to see you there and I can serve you there more powerfully as well. Have a great week and I'll see you on the masterclass.